let's talk about EOE, better known as eosinophilic esophagitis. This is a common but not often early diagnosed condition related to heartburn. So when you have EOE, the eosinophilic part of that is the culprit in this situation. So think of it like this. You have food that you eat, and the food goes down to the stomach, all right? Food in, down the esophagus. Here's our stomach. Here's our esophagus. Pretty straightforward. But what if you're eating foods that you do not digest well? What if you eat foods that you cannot properly process? Instead of those foods getting into your stomach and you digesting them the way you're supposed to, that your immune system says, whoa, hold on a second. What is going on here? We can't actually deal with this in our typical fashion. This is a foreign invader, like an infection, like a heavy metal, poison, a toxin. Your immune system is going to attack it. So your immune system is found throughout the body. It starts in the mouth. Your mouth might actually get some reaction, whether it's ulcers or sores in the mouth. But the esophagus can start to get an inflammatory cascade of events because your immune system is rushing to the scene to attack this problem. That can be kind of when originally diagnosed by a doctor, thought of as heartburn, because when the stomach is irritated by these foods, of course, it can lead to a bubbling up of acids. Those acids kick up into the esophagus and can cause irritation. So what do the doctors do? They're going to give you, more than likely, if you haven't already done an antacid, try an antacid. A Pepto-Bismol would be a great example. And the next step would be a PPI. Zantac, Pepcid. You're going to then take that as an over-the-counter or a more concentrated, stronger version like omeprazole or pantoprazole, known as Protonix. Those significantly reduce our stomach acids, thereby hoping to reduce the irritation up into the esophagus. But that is the first line of thought by the doctors. The second line of thought comes in as, well, could this be EOE? What then is discussed is, well, let's get you tested for some sort of food allergy. And the food allergies are done either through blood work, where they look at, do you have certain IgE components to this? So over here, I'm going to put IgE. IgE is your classic peanut allergy. You have a food that you eat, your body, full DEFCON 1 alarm system, nuclear on that food, you end up with a significant anaphylactic reaction and shock. And if you don't fix that quickly, generally with an EpiPen or some sort of shot of adrenaline, you could die. Right? That is an IgE-mediated allergy. That is the most severe of those, and there are varying degrees of those, but they're all termed as an allergy. So you get sent for that blood draw, or you get sent to the allergist where they do the skin prick, and they do hundreds of little skin prick indentations into your skin with a particular allergen, whether it's pine pollen from the outside, whether it's a food like dairy. They just basically prick the skin with an irritant, and they see what kind of IgE allergy response you get. So from the blood work, they might not see any IgE reaction. And from the skin prick test, they may not see any skin reaction. Therefore, they say, well, you don't have an allergy. The foods aren't involved. And therefore, your EOE is just a relation just related to your stomach problem. So they keep throwing on the PPIs, or they might add on an H2 blocker to help reduce histamine in the stomach. thereby further reducing stomach acids, trying to solve this problem. But the thing you must consider is that there's another component to food sensitivities and reactions to foods you can't digest properly, and that is looking at IgG. Okay? So in an IgG, think of that as a food sensitivity. It is a lesser version of a food reaction. The IgE is the full-blown allergy. The IgG is the little bit of food sensitivity. And what if you had a sensitivity to a certain type of food, but you ate it a little bit every day, and that sensitivity starts to grow? It's almost like dropping water into a bucket. Slowly but surely, that bucket starts to fill up. And what if all of a sudden one day you start to get eosinophilic esophagitis? Your food slowly but surely is causing an inflammatory cascade. It may not be even heartburn. It could be just that you're noticing this difficulty swallowing. It could be chest pressure, and of course, heartburn, along with what we said earlier, even some sores in the mouth as your immune system is reacting to these foods. But it comes over time. And it doesn't mean in an IgG situation that you can sit down and say, okay, I'm going to play detective. I'm going to eat a certain food and see how I feel in an hour. Because that's not how IgG works. IgG reactions can last over days and weeks from the time that you actually were exposed to it. So to go back and say, well, I don't feel great today, so I look back 24 hours and I can see what I ate, it must be one of those foods. That's not how this works. And that's how it becomes so challenging with EOE and why our patients come to see us, because heartburn is not always the case. And EOE is not an easy thing to solve. You have to figure out, doing the IgG testing, how this happened or what's causing this, right? So the IgE is tied in with your eosinophils, as is the IgG. Okay? They both lead to the same problem, but we have to figure out the IgG food sensitivity component of this. So what we recommend to figure this out is a blood prick test. It is basically a food sensitivity test. And that tells us, looking at nearly 200 foods, beverages, spices, what somebody is sensitive to. What are these small sensitivities that can add up to a bigger problem over time, leading to eosinophilic esophagitis, EOE. That is how you can solve that. And that is a test that helps us determine that. And then you can figure that out. That test is in the 300 to 350 range. With a lot of these tests, they're not covered by insurance, so that's not nothing, but it's not the most expensive test you'll find out there. It's pretty reasonable, and based on the fact that you might be struggling with EOE, that's probably a small price to pay. The other thing we recommend is, if you want to do this type of figuring out what's going on, but don't have the financial ability to do this test, you actually do an elimination diet over 60 days. So an elimination diet is getting rid of certain foods, and we recommend the big 6. So the most common foods that are related to EOE, but by no means the entire list, is the following. So no, for 60 days, you have dairy, you have gluten / wheat, you have eggs, you have soy, you have chocolate, you have caffeine. Obviously, caffeine can take many forms, but these are the 6. You eliminate those for 60 days. So nothing for 60 days. Eliminate that and see how you feel. The symptoms are gone, then you know you have an IgG food sensitivity to one of these or multiple of these foods, and you have to figure out what that is, because then you're going to have to avoid that food so that this problem does not continue. All right? That's how you handle EOE. You don't slap a Band-Aid on it. That PPI being the Band-Aid, the medications being the Band-Aid, you have to get to the root cause. What's underneath that problem? It's going to continue to cause that wound to bleed. That Band-Aid's not going to solve it unless the blood finally stops pouring out of the wound. Same thing here. You can't just slap a PPI medication on a problem if you keep eating the foods causing the problem. You're going to end up with Barrett's esophagitis, which is a cancerous development in the throat, because the problem was never fixed. Have to fix the problem. Stomach lining issues, peptic ulcers, other problems down the digestive tract involving bacterial overgrowth. You also remember, in terms of these PPIs, they reduce your ability to digest food. So you end up with vitamin deficiencies, mineral deficiencies. You're lacking the proteins that you need to rebuild your body and build muscle. You're lacking the proper fats to help with all your cellular metabolism and brain health. You're missing out on a lot of foods that your stomach acids are preventing you from absorbing. So let's get down to the real cause of this issue, figure that out together. All right?